It's always something with this administration, right? I got right here over my shoulder, I got Murphy's Law, that could go wrong will. And I'm going to admit there's a lot of things that I think were pretty much predictable when it came to the Trump administration. We knew they're going to be hard on immigration. We knew they were going to bend the rules and not go past the rules. We're seeing that every single day. I expected the stock market to crash with the Trump tariff war. This is no surprise either. But I got to admit, every so often something shows up that it's like, I can't believe this is what they just did. Some of it I find comical just because it's pure incompetence, and some of it is nothing but pure evil. And that's what I'm talking about today. Now, Doge, right? Still waiting for my check, by the way. I don't trust him. And so I already did a prior blog post, and I'll put that link in the description, talking about freezing your credit. And it's a step that I took because security experts have been warning now for a while that if there comes a breach, this will be a breach like we've never seen before. This isn't a breach like if you're a credit card company where they have limited information. This is the US government and all the information they have on us. And you can imagine what a disaster a brief would do, stolen identities and everything else. So that's one of the changes that I've made. Now, this issue that I saw today was like, okay, again, this is another disaster. It's a disaster financially. And remember, that's what this blog is about. That's what my videos are about. It's all about finances, getting out of debt, protecting your money, and everything else. And this comes now with something that I never heard of until it showed up in the news. Most people probably never heard of it, but it's called the Death Master List. Now, let me backtrack here for a second. Doge has been talking about, actually, President Trump at one point said 200-year-olds were collecting Social Security checks. That's just laughable. That's one of those things that I just laugh at and I said, what a joke this whole thing is. Now, Social Security at 110 years old will automatically block checks from going out. So imagine being 110 years old and somehow getting down to your Social Security Administration office and says, I'm still alive. Guys, I'm still alive. Please send me a check. But that's literally what happens. There's no exaggeration in that. Now, what happens when someone dies because there's 200-year-olds collecting checks? Well, unless the person got rid of the body, and now we're talking murder and everything else, in the real world, what happens is that social security number gets, through the social security, through the funeral home, they will get a death certificate and provide that to Social Security Administration, and you're done. I've gone through it. Unfortunately, both of my parents have passed away, and that's how it happened. There were extra checks coming in or nothing else like that. Now, when you go open up a bank account, right? You have to prove certain things. One being who you are. And you do that with your driver's license, right? Passport, if you have one as well, and also your social security card. They're going to run all that information through the system. And so if you give them the wrong social security number, they're going to say, this doesn't match. You wrote it wrong. Maybe you got the last number wrong, whatever it is. Now, what happens if that number is tied into someone who's dead? Clearly, you're not opening up a bank account. And that's the latest move by Doge now and the federal government. They are stripping away and putting legal immigrants, because we know legal immigrants are being deported. Trump has even floated the idea of deporting US citizens, which again, that's just laughable. I think that's just one of his distractions. I mean, if I saw that happen, I don't know what to tell you. I don't expect it. But with legal immigration, we've seen people getting deported that shouldn't. We have that one individual that's in El Salvador, shouldn't have been deported. Now the Trump administration is saying, what do you want us to do? He's over there. We don't have no control over this. So the whole thing is just disgusting. And this is just one of those moves. What they're doing is if they put an immigrant who's here legally under this death master list, well, then that Social Security isn't valid anymore because the person is dead. Now, move forward with this. What happens with that money in the bank account? You shouldn't be able to access it, right? Because the person's dead. And when someone dies, how do you get access to that account? Well, you got to go through probate court, right? Say this person died with or without a will, and say, prove that you're the beneficiary. If there's a will, there's no will, then prove you're the next of kin and everything else. The problem is, how are you going to go to probate court with a person who's not dead? There's no jurisdiction. the first thing you have to prove is the person actually died. And that means come in with a death certificate that you're not going to get because there's no body matching the death certificate. There's only someone in the government said this person's dead, but there's no body and there's no death certificate. So we can forget about probate. What else? Well, TOD, transfer on death, when you put, someone as a beneficiary, it's a good way to avoid probate. It's what lawyers typically say. So you don't want to put everything through probate. If you can avoid it, go ahead. Simple way is TOD. TOD doesn't mean if you put me on TOD in your bank account, doesn't mean I get to use your bank account. The only time I'll have access to that account is when I prove you passed away with a certified copy of the death certificate from the Bureau of Vital Statistics, which you're not dead. So that ain't going to work either. So what's left? Well, you could add someone to your account. I don't like that much of an option either. I'll tell you what I think is the best way of handling this. And that way, if that account is closed because of that one particular person, well, at least the other person that you trust, spouse or whoever, is not going to have these immigration issues, son, daughter, whoever, can then say, well, okay, I can use the account. So what if the other person can't? Now, the easiest way, and it's a way I've always said to protect yourself from creditors, is just simply transfer the funds to an account of someone who's not likely to have this issue. So keep that account with a minimal amount of money in it. So, in case there's never any problems and life is good down the road, then just use that account as regular. I understand that that's not the best solution either. Sometimes as lawyers, we have to say we're not magicians, we're just lawyers, and we can only play with the facts that are given to us. But unfortunately, if that's the case, then hopefully it's someone you can trust, a son or daughter, where there's not going to be issues of digging into that account and taking the money. But realistically, it's your money. And to think that now the government is saying this person's dead just to make their life a little more miserable. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, it's just, again, it's appalling behavior, but you have to do everything you can to protect yourself. Now, we could go further into this, maybe depending on your situation. You could just start getting money, getting paid in cash, or, just cash to check immediately, have cash. And now we go back to, 1980. Well, I should use 1984, right? That's where we're living in. George Orwell would be proud. But and just start paying for things that way. The problem is it's the time and the expense involved, right? If you're going to pay your rent, now you have to go get a cashier's check, or your mortgage, get a cashier's check. That's what, 7, 8, $10 they're going to charge you. Money orders, I'm not a fan of, only because they're hard to trace. A cashier's check is much better. Money orders $1, but then you have problems proving that the payments were made. I mean, this is the most extreme I could tell you. Hopefully it's a local bank. Let's say if it's a mortgage, you could just walk in and pay them, and then that takes care of the problem. But just look at the overall picture here, where the government is saying this person's dead. They're only doing it because of immigration reasons. And now the domino effect, the snowball effect that I've been saying over and over again of what do you do now? What do you do now? You can't. Your social security number is useless. Yeah, we can go to court and all that, but you know what? Get in line. How many lawsuits have been filed against this administration? So I've always said it's easier to stay out than to get out. So if somehow you believe you're in a situation as an immigrant and you're trying, you're finding out now about this death master list. It sounds so morbid. The reality is you have to protect yourself. And again, that's what all this is about, this blog and everything else, being informed and being prepared. And so take those steps. Do not let them get your money. Again, it's your money. You worked hard for it. I've always said, do not mess with people's money. That is theirs. That's what they work for. That's how they put food on the table. And so this is one of those situations. So I wish the news were better. The good news is that you now know that this is happening and you can take steps to protect yourself. But you're going to have to protect yourself. There is no other way around this. All right. Any questions or comments, post them in the comment section below. I hope you don't have to deal with this garbage. I'm sorry if you do. Unfortunately, we are facing unprecedented times, and this requires drastic actions. It requires being prepared. All right. Take care, everyone. I hope to give you better news next time around. Bye bye.